Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of Looks Like We Made It, and a happy new year to all of our listeners. Thank you for your patience while we've been enjoying our Christmas cheer. I am Issy Howell and I'm joined by Managing Director and Creative Industry Expert Chris to talk all things video marketing. We are the father and daughter who run the video production company Howell Film, and each week we will be discussing all sorts, like what happens behind the scenes on our projects, getting results from your video content, how to start using video in your business, and plenty more to come. We're always up for candidly conversing about creativity, and on this episode we are back to part 2 of listening to Andy Roughan talking about his love of the Bose Swan. So if you listen to part 1, this is just an extension of that because that overran by a lot. So without further ado, let's get started, and of course never miss an episode every Tuesday by giving us a follow or subscribe, as well as finding Howell Film on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn. Let's go!
Howell Film, in that capacity, will always have captured the Swan's moment of its life at that particular point through our own eyes, and only through the people who were on that cruise.
And obviously, in 50 years' time, a film crew might turn up and go, "Oh, those old timers, those ye oldie Howell Film, those old timers, they did it right, they did it a conventional way," and and I think that it's good. I mean, I think that the it's legacy. I think there's a real. I think we're part of something, and I think that's a brilliant.
But it's not just that. I mean, if you think when there was the Bouts painting as well, like again something with such an incredible history in a different sense. It's not that's a literal static object. We're talking where the swan moves and everything like that. But the way that we as filmmakers, and I think it sometimes is forgotten, that the way that we choose to represent something or choose to capture something, whether it's a wide, a close, what angles we use when we do it, is very much the style which we impart, whether we know it or not, or whether we think, we're just filming this a standard way or whatever. It becomes intrinsically a deeply personal journey while you're filming it. So you'll see a small moment where we've got a close up because we can get close to the swan. They've taken the case off with
you were under the swan at one point.
We're carefully standing nearby. We're not too close, but we're able to get that shot where the swan lifts its head and you can see the fish between. And we are filming this in a way which, in my opinion,
it's never been done.
It's never been done. It's never been done in as long as film has been a medium. It's never been done, and you can't help but get swept up in that, or at least I know I can't help but get swept up in that.
I think that's
very romanticized though.
But the passion, but it's about passion, isn't it? If we weren't into it, then the irony would be that our clients wouldn't see that wouldn't engage with us because they know we weren't into it. So hopefully it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more engaged and excited we are and continue to be in terms of the work we produce, then that should rub off, and the clients and others will say, "Gosh, they are genuinely excited people. They do this because they love it."
Did you feel, because of the gravitas of the project, and because of the thing that we were filming being so unique in its own being, and the fact that it's so old and delicate and fragile, etc., did you feel there was a responsibility beyond the client's expectations to make this as perfect as you could possibly do it, beyond just doing a job for the client?
I'm going to jump in it goes beyond that, because I feel you've got a responsibility for every single job you do. And you mean, is there an additional responsibility?
I mean, the responsibility of if this is going to be when you're in the project, this sort of stuff doesn't quite hit you that it was that in major. But as in, if this is the last time that the swan hasn't been played properly since we did this film, and who knows when it will do next. But what if we were the last people to ever film that swan being played? And did that feel like? Did you feel like you had a responsibility as filmmakers to capture it because you knew that this could be the last performance people ever have of the swan?
Go on, Andy. You jump in.
Yes.
From a filmmaker's perspective and the film crew's perspective, yes. From my perspective as the boss, whatever, dad boss.
Dad, boss, and Swan Boys.
I smell a franchise.
That's the new gig.
I think you've just got to do. We couldn't have made a better job. No. We couldn't have done that any better. The point is that we left nothing on the table. That's as good a work as we can do, and that's it. So did I feel any extra special? Well, yes, because of just the sheer coolness of what we were working on. But ultimately, that's the key. The key is that if you can't do any better, that's it. That you cannot ask any more from anybody.
Yeah, and the edit. I mean, moving away from the actual filmmaking of it, moving on to the editing, because I edited that, and the process of it, I remember was really enjoyable, because I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it, really, and it was one of those ones that, because it had been planned so carefully beforehand, the editing process just was smooth sailing, really, and we got a chance to be very creative, more creative maybe than traditional kind of corporate film companies get to be. But I remember when I was editing that bit where there was you filmed the Swan performing each 4 times from 4 separate sides, so a square around it. So you put the backdrop on every single side, so you filmed it one side, the front, this other side, and the back. And I had all that footage, and I had to make sure that the Swan performance, you saw enough of it, and you saw it, because most people just see it playing stood in front of them on the side, to the side, but I wanted to make sure that the viewer got to see the Swan from so many different angles that they would never normally get to see it. So when the Swan's performing normally, the audience is just stood on one side, they watch it play, they applaud, and they go. They don't get a chance to walk right up to it and look around it, and
four cameras from 4 sides is 12 views.
Yeah, so they got a lot of different views, but I wanted to do it in such a way where you could enjoy
16 views.
Yeah. So
Sorry, I can't handle that.
Oh, you think my maths is bad? But so I wanted to make sure that the viewer could enjoy it in such a way where it didn't just become a vanity act. It was actually still just enjoying the Swan for what it was, straight playing in front of them, but giving them a little bit of glamour on the side of that as well. But yeah, I remember I just loved it because we got to use the Swan ticking noises and all of if you do watch the film, all of the kind of ticking noises, clockwork noises, we took different noises from around when the Swan was being maintained, and we made that into music. We created a soundscape, and editing that was a lot of fun. And at the end of it, if you ask me the process, it was one of those ones where, a bit like any creative process, you can't quite remember how you did it, but I do remember it was amazing.
When you get a call from St. Petersburg and they want you to come and do their golden peacock, you better remember.
Well, apparently Swan Boy's not interested, so.
But it is interesting though, before you mention pressure, because I think inherently anything like that comes with pressure, because you are, like you say, it's that thing of, to kind of set the scene, it's film the wide, so the question becomes, where do you film the wide from? Not where do you want to film the wide from, because that's not what you're really doing. What you need to do is understand, where did the audience traditionally view this from, because that is your opening gambit. So that's the side you start with. Then you say, right, we've got one camera locked off on the wide, where are the other cameras going? What are we going to capture? What's going to be in the background? Is this going to be right? Is that a close-up? Is that a mid? That is pressure, because once you move that set and, we move that round, for example, it's then behind the Swan and we're facing forwards, what is that going to be on? So and, we do it. We move, basically, get what we need, move, get what we need. Now, really what that is it's experience, because we're all, we're looking at what we find fascinating, the details, but I think what really doesn't get shouted out probably enough about is the fact is there are shots in that which is tilts and pans. That is operators. That is an operator following the Swan, which, you know, is... And like I say, we get one shot.
Which could be a once-in-a-lifetime shot.
That's it. We get one shot at it because, you know...
How did you feel? Because that element of being part of history and stuff is just like gold. It's amazing. I love it. Obviously, you got to be up close with the Swan in such a way that the general public aren't. We famously remember the fact that Matthew, the urologist, was like, and you're like, oh, I wonder what it looks like underneath. And he was like, well, under you get, then have a look. And you were literally underneath the and obviously a bit like an iceberg. The Swan at the top that you see, the Silver Swan, is just the top of it, and there's a whole engine underneath it, essentially of machinery and cogs and pieces, and like a big, like, everything is underneath it. And you got to literally, with expensive camera equipment, go underneath something that was absolutely priceless in a place where I'm assuming only a handful of people since its creation have been underneath it and seen it in that way,
and never with a camera.
Well,
never with a camera.
I would say there's probably been more people underneath it because it's been.
But as in doing as being like a person who's not an urologist.
Yeah, as a documentarian, like, it becomes massively different, and probably, realistically, no one has ever filmed under there.
But how did that feel?
Well, I mean, that is, you know, that was amazing because, I mean, I'm like a foot away from watching the actual how the music box works. You know, you don't traditionally, because it's all boxed up, you don't traditionally see how the little the music cylinder. It's like a cylinder. It like rolls around, a bit like how music boxes work, really, because it has like a number of tracks played on that, But really, it's incredible because seeing under that and watching the mechanisms all work, obviously you get lost in the moment because you aren't thinking about that, because your eyes are looking through the camera. As an operator, the only thing you focus on is the screen. So weirdly, it adds a layer of like almost non-realism, if you know what I mean, because you're just like, I'm looking through a camera, I'm looking at a subject, and it becomes like that. It becomes less of like a...
So you distance yourself from it.
So you're almost blown away when you saw it.
Because you're, from a technical standpoint, you're always looking at, you're thinking, is the shutter good? Is the ISO good? White balance, am I happy with that?
Because you can't just ask them to pop the Swan out again for you to have another go.
You know, it at the end of the day, I mean, Matthew was amazing because he had ways of helping it to slow down a little bit if we needed to do something very specific. But for the most part, it's just going to play, and you just have to, and there's a level of, and this again comes down to details, pre-production, planning, all that kind of stuff, asking the question, what is going to happen next? Because if you don't ask that and you just get under the Swan and point a camera upwards and you've got no idea what's going to happen, where are you pointing that camera? Like, it becomes so essential, and synergy and teamwork in that team, I think literally, like, in terms of teamwork, was incredible.
Yeah. It was, and we've obviously, we had runners taking part in that, and they were just fantastic, and other filmmakers other than you that were there to sort of support you, and get the B-roll element, which is essentially the cutaways, the opposite of really what you're getting. So I don't know, if you have like a hand doing something, they would get sort of the other side of what you're doing. So as an editor, you get a lot to cut between and move between. But yeah, I think as a behind the scenes on a project that we've done, I think this was a great one to start on, because it is so different to what we might normally do in our everyday. And I think particularly having that happen during the pandemic was extra exciting, because obviously the landscape changed a lot during the pandemic for us, with, you know, events not going ahead and stuff like that. And our focus had to change from doing your traditional corporate and event-based work to moving into something more creative, moving into something more like kind of lottery funded and prestigious in that respect. So that was a really, really exciting thing, and I think that experience has challenged us to take on other work like that in the future. I mean, we did another massive Bose project just a few weeks ago, which we will be probably revisiting.
Another podcast.
And that was a week of filming, not 2 days. So Swan Boy here is going to be here for quite some time.
I mean, just to kind of, we're probably out of time, really. I think
I might split this into a two-parter.
Yeah,
so.
well, just to round out, I guess, from the main points of this is when you were talking, when I was like, I really want to talk about Automaton. Really, at the heart of it, what makes an Automaton so, amazing as a legacy piece for filmmakers is it really is something made by a creative person who built it in mind to entertain an audience, which is what we are all doing even today.
Oh,
so
wow.
it's such a beautiful thing to creatively work with this artifact, which is creativity, and bring your own creativity to that. Does that make sense?
It makes brilliant sense.
I think that's very
poetic
Yeah.
and lovely.
Very poetic. I really like that, and I hope you enjoyed talking about. You've been wanting to talk about this on the podcast for so long.
I could talk about it forever. But
Well,
I'll leave it
we'll do
there.
another one.
Yeah,
later on.
we've got other projects that get Andy just as excited. So
Absolutely.
they'll be in the
Absolutely.
thing. So my last question has got nothing to do,
Go on then.
absolutely nothing to do.
It's
with
not
swans.
another biscuit related question.
No, I spent. You didn't like that one.
I didn't, because I was just thinking I don't know, just
It's got to be a bourbon, hasn't it?
I'd
I
said
love
that.
bourbons or
Oh,
Yeah, but
see,
biscuit,
that's the cream.
but biscuit,
layered
yeah.
biscuits.
Chris only waits till we get on the podcast to critique me, so we might make a. This is just turning into a roast. So my question is, and this is only because I'm feeling very festive. It's the start of December. What is your favorite Christmas movie?
Oh,
I'm not talking about automatons here, so
It's got
not the Bose Swan then.
No, I
who can
think
put some hats on it?
it's the difficult one. I mean, you watch the same ones every year, but there's, I don't know. That is a really difficult question. If I could pick three, I'd be
Out of
better.
all the questions I've asked you about complex
that
automaton,
do you know what? I'm just going to go out on a limb and say Muppets Christmas Carol.
no, really?
I'm just going to go out on a limb. I'm just going to back that.
Would the Patrick Stewart Christmas Carol
I was
be
going to say
allowed?
the same.
If not, I'd say the Santa Claus.
Wow, you two have got really highbrow options.
we
here.
are. You can tell we are professional filmmakers.
I was going to say, well, I do like that, Tim Allen, and see, I was going to go for, and that's because the Muppets Christmas Carol does have that famous shot in it that you absolutely love, which is Kermit and the moonlight and stuff.
What a
every year you
Great
make me
shot.
pause it and you just look at it for about 20
And I'm
minutes.
like, I know it's Christmas.
So
when I see that
my
shot.
favourite would be, and I'm with you on this, is Patrick Stewart's Christmas Carol, and that is because we watch it as a family tradition every Christmas Eve. And when I was a little kid, when I knew it was on, I knew it was Christmas Day soon, so I'd send myself to bed immediately afterwards. We'd be at like 7
like
p.m.
quarter past 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah, and then I'd spend the remaining 6 hours of the day just coming down going, I can't sleep. So yeah, I think, and that has become
And you
like
were
a real...
17 at the time.
Yeah, exactly. Even now, Andy's like, just stay up for God's sake. So so that is my favourite one. So that's
Good option.
I thought-
What are people at home? I'd be interested to hear. Like, what are people watching who listen to this podcast? They have Christmas film recommendations. I'm always up for watching.
the one
them.
of you that listens, just let us know.
Yeah.
You can drop
We've
us an
got tons
email.
of listeners on
We
Avenue.
do, and
And hey, there might be, even if there are some international listeners, there might be Christmas movies
Might
we've
be
never even
international
heard of.
movies from.
Feliz
Apart.
Navidad to
Yeah.
those who are listening elsewhere. So that's true. Yeah, let us know. And so that was the end of our podcast today. We hope you enjoyed that, and thank you so much, Andy, for coming on and talking about the Automaton.
Anytime.
That's Swan Boy over and out. If you do want to carry on listening to us, you can do. We release an episode every Tuesday. You can find our podcast wherever you get your podcasts, including www.howellfilm.co.uk. If you do listen on Apple Podcasts or Apple Music, please rate and review. And if you do have a question for us to answer, or you want to be on the show yourself, just let us know as well. So we hope you have a great week, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Thanks, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.